I guess the question for me is, do you believe, or let me say it this way, because this is how I feel about it. I'm not placing this on you, but do you trust people enough to take half information that hasn't been completely vetted and run with that and be good enough with it? Or has this process that you've seen happen this year make you feel like, no, we need to really have our ducks in a row before we tell people anything?
So a couple things. So one thought that I had while you were sort of speaking before you posed the question
Hmm.
was, with a lot of things, for example, in medicine in particular, we do sort of risk analyses, and probably in business as well, right? So there's sort of
Oh
a
yeah.
risk benefit, and so wearing a mask, for example, like you didn't really have to wait for that data to come out. Like even if you were totally wrong, like the worst case scenario was that the person wore a mask. So it injures no one, it costs very little, and maybe we would have like decreased sort of at source like transmission of droplets, and then we learned aerosolization of like the virus.
Hmm.
So as far as like information being vetted, I mean, sadly, I think the thing that played a role from for public health agencies is, and this was really sort of troubling to me, was when I think of public health, I think of it as being politically neutral. I think of it
Hmm.
being the health of the public, that we put that forward, and that we don't really have any loyalty, allegiance to any party, because it really doesn't matter to me. That the health of the entire public is what's important to me. So I think that some of the government agencies, my belief is maybe we're not able to convey the information that they wanted to. So
Hmm.
whether that was tactics to sort of decrease fear, pandemonium, the public, feeling like it was the end of the world or some type of Armageddon. I'm sure there's probably some things that people much smarter than me understand about not causing a rise. But vetting sources, I've also learned this year that people don't do their own due diligence. Like I don't know that you would need to in the realm of like science and public health, but for a lot of other sort of political aspects, I've been sort of surprised that sometimes people aren't reading multiple sources and then coming to a consensus, or sort of accepting something that they feel that they've really studied. So I think it's just poor practice in medicine, and probably poor practice in personal life also, to just read one source, to accept it at face value. And there's no sort of analysis of like a hierarchy of evidence, which is what we do again in medicine. So we look at journal articles. So study design determines, is this a good study? Was it just one case? How many people were involved? What did the people who were involved look like? Is this representative of our society? What was the situation? Couldn't we apply this to our communities? Um, Versus, just reading one source and hanging your hat on it and being like, yeah, I read this and that's it. And just because you read it doesn't mean it's been verified or vetted. But I, I'm hoping that things will change. I think because people are, if they haven't already been tired, people are really tired now of this situation and really want to know when it's going to end, and when we can sort of hope to have some semblance back of like normal.
Absolutely. And I think that what is going to be challenging, both from a political, a public health, just pure societal perspective, is how we deal with and I'm going to say some buzzwords here that have been said a million times this year, so prepare yourself. But deal with the
Epidemiology.
cognitive dissonance.
Just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
the cognitive dissonance, the confirmation bias, and the echo chambers that the internet has created for these people. So where it's not about the accuracy of, excuse me, the accuracy of the information. It's the information that I already believe saying what I already believe.
Yeah,
And that's
it's similar. It's exactly that. So sorry to cut you off. It's like, my
yeah.
son is learning how to write essays and sort of the algorithm of essays. And if you're going to make a claim, to have evidence that backs it up. And so sometimes when he's writing the essay, he's coming up with a claim and then he has to sort of back it up with some type of evidence. And so that sort of echo chamber is, in my mind, I have a thought about what I think about this topic, and I'm going to find the
Mhm.
source that backs up my thought. And
Yeah.
like, is that the right thing to do? No, right? So where is the actual objective truth? And like how do you find it, and how do you know, and the thing is, it's probably not just one source of information. It's probably that you have to survey multiple sources of information, and where there's overlap is probably where the truth is lying.
Yeah. And the disheartening thing is, I just simply don't think that people either have the time or the patience, or let's
Yeah.
say the will to do that, because you're basically talking
It's a lot
about,
of
like I
work.
said, it is, and I think for me, that's the first thing I do. I think I call Facebook now my pre-Google, and what that means for me is that a lot of times when I go on Facebook and I see somebody post something, that just tells me what to Google because I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know whether or not what you've posted is true, but let me look into that a little bit more. And you've been my kind of catalyst for going in and looking into that. But I don't think a lot of people do that. They say, like you said, they see it and they go, "That's the thing I already thought, so that's good. I'm good with that news source." What does that say? It's babylonb.org. Okay, cool. We're good with that.
Yeah. I think, um, that's to do otherwise, I think requires a certain amount of sort of insight,
Mhm.
introspection, maybe, emotional, not only intelligence, but maturity, because you're sort of questioning yourself. You're sort of saying, okay, this is what I think. Am I right? Am I wrong? Like, what am I missing? So for you to sort of have the wherewithal to say, well, I'm going to like test this out and see if there's other sources that conflict it and where is the difference and where is like the debate.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I have not watched yet the documentary Social Dilemma. I've heard a lot about it. I know that it has, created a lot of thought for people that maybe even we're sort of also only going to we're going to be exposed, for example, on Facebook,
Mhm.
um, based on sort of who our friends are, what they post, whose information we see. And so it's just like being narrowed down further and further and further
Mhm.
um, instead of really it being an opportunity to see lots of different viewpoints and saying like wow, I've never really thought about that, and that's a different way to look at things, and I don't know if I agree with it, but it's got me thinking.
Well, and I think the problem that a lot of people have, and let me say it this way, actually, I shouldn't say problem. One of the challenges that a lot of people go through is that when they do have people who have disagreeing point of views, is one, how to deal with that in a cordial manner, but then also, can they keep that on their timeline and keep looking at that and feel okay? I think a lot of people remove people from their timelines that have differing opinions, and that causes part of the problem because now you're not seeing what the other side is saying. You're not seeing what other people are out there believing, so that you know where this information is coming from. And again, here's the thing that's a scary thing to say, very scary thing to say, but it's true. I think Alex Jones is pretty much insane, right? I think that's a fairly fair statement for a lot of people. However, he's been right. And that's the scary thing to say, is that somebody like Alex Jones or somebody who goes out there and they say these preposterous things sometimes may be right. And then that, for some people, validates everything they're saying. And so that, I think, is sometimes the fear for people who are looking at their timeline and trying to take people out of there. They're worried about when they're going to be right and how they emotionally deal with that. And I don't know that they can continue to have that on their Facebook page or their Twitter or whatever it is. But that's one of the things I always try to challenge myself, is to not unfollow people that I don't agree with. I want to keep them on there because I need to see the differing opinions so I don't become so sure of myself that I can just yell at people, across the street or whatever.
And I think that's tough because I'll tell you, I
Hmm.
think you're a better person than me because I've definitely unfriended a ton of people this year. So like,
Wait. So hold on. Let's stop right there.
yeah.
You are a medical doctor and epidemiologist in the midst of a pandemic. There is no way that I'm a better person than you. Okay, so uh, I don't unfollow people on Facebook. That doesn't give me a Nobel Prize.